glad everyone is here today, who's here today. Thank you for coming. And you know, this is what I envisioned years ago when we first moved to New York here, the Capital Region, and came to the church here. I envisioned a thriving men's ministry. It's one of the things that you know, was on my heart, and at that time, 2008, there were maybe barely as many men in the church as there are in this room right now.
I was there.
I came. There were 2 young adult single guys. One of them isn't with us anymore. And the rest, most of the other guys in the church were, actually, you were kind of young.
Yes.
You weren't really super young. You were
Absolutely.
older than
I'm
most
still
men.
young,
You were there.
absolutely.
You are still young.
Yeah,
You are still young.
no doubt about it,
I
yeah.
didn't really consider you like a young adult family.
Yeah,
You were a
yeah,
bit older,
right.
you know, but middle, you know, you were in your 30s. But, you know,
James was there,
mid-
Something like
mid-30s.
that, yeah.
What's that?
James was there though.
James
right?
was there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Pastor's now up there like all those other old guys. So
Yeah,
this
now,
is
now
like-
I'm including myself and those old guys, but, and there was a lot of work to do on the building. I mean, the building was falling apart, and I had, the only 2 guys that weren't working were in their 70s, and Charles Mercier was one of them. And the other guy was in his 70s, and he had congestive heart failure. And you know, so, there just wasn't a whole lot going on as far as our men. And, but I envisioned a thriving, men's ministry in our church, and, so we started several years ago just doing like a quarterly men's breakfast, just a quarterly kind of thing, and then Mike and Brian really had it in their heart to start some kind of Bible study for just guys, and so we're growing, and then James started planning events, different events for our men, and so I'd like to continue to see this kind of thing just continue to develop and grow. As a matter of fact, James, there is something happening for us in July too, right?
Yeah, we did that earlier.
You did that already? You explained that? Okay, good, very good. So, I have one announcement. If you guys, I know some of you in this room already have, but if you have not, if you could take time in the next day or so and Google our church, Google Community Gospel Church, make sure it's Rensselaer or not, a different Community Gospel Church, and give us a Google rating. Give us a rating, because something happened several years ago, about 4 years ago. 3 or 4 people who have never been in, have never even stepped inside our church, gave us a 1-star rating, and it hurt our overall rating. And people use those Google ratings to, you know, to go to restaurants and, you know, different things and organizations. And so we did a little research, and we found out at least a couple of those people who have never even been in our church are practicing witches. And that's what they do to churches. They just give 1 ratings to all these, and they didn't leave any comments, just one, you know, and so it's taken us years to sort of build that back up. So if you could do me a favor, and over the next day or so, Google our church, give us a and I'm only going to speak just this once, and then I think right after this, we'll have a break, and then we'll break this down a little bit more specifically. The 2 Corinthians 10, let's read a couple of verses here, beginning in verse 3. 2 Corinthians 10, verse 3. Can someone read that nice and loud, please, when you get there?
Which verses?
2 Corinthians 10, verses 3 through 5.
Indeed, we live as human beings, but we do not wage war according to human standards. Wage war, for the weapons of our warfare are not merely human, but they have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every proud obstacle raised up against the knowledge of God, and we take every thought captive to obey Christ.
Thank you. So what I want to talk about this morning a little bit is about strongholds. Now, if we were to play the word association game and I said to you stronghold, think about the first word that would come to your mind. For a lot of people, when they hear the word stronghold, they think of a bunch of demons hanging all off of you, you know, hanging off your head and hanging on you, and preventing you from moving and things like that. But actually, in the Old Testament, a stronghold was a fortified dwelling place that was extremely difficult to approach or to assault. Okay, so a stronghold protected you from your enemy because it was tough to get to. I actually mentioned one of these strongholds this past Sunday in 1 Samuel 23, verse 14. It says that David made his home in these strongholds. Oftentimes they were on these mountainsides that were, kind of like a cliff, the crags here, very rocky places. So that's what a stronghold was. It was a means of protection against you from the enemy. Okay, and so these were physical structures. Okay, physical structures. But in the New Testament, stronghold means something a little bit different, but the principle is still the same. Now, to give you a little bit of a better understanding, when I say this, if you are trying to get to your enemy, or your enemy is trying to get to you, and there's a stronghold in between you, the stronghold is separating us from our enemy. Okay? So that stronghold has to come down or be removed in some way before victory can be obtained. Okay, so the best case scenario, probably in the Old Testament, would be Jericho. The wall of Jericho separated Israel, the army, the nation, from the enemy. Okay, so it wasn't until that wall came down, the stronghold was removed, then victory could be obtained. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Now, verse 5a, the beginning part of verse 5 says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. I love war movies, and I love fantasy movies, especially that took place in medieval times. I love that kind of setting. I love battle strategy and that kind of thing. And so I was always a big fan of Lord of the Rings. And in the second movie, The Two Towers, there's and the Lord of the Rings, if you haven't seen it, it's really good. Even if you're not a big fan of fantasy and this kind of thing, the movie's really good. It's a lot like the movie The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood, but not exactly. And so there's this. That was a joke. There you go. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. There's a scene in The Two Towers where there's a stronghold. The good guys and all the families are holding up in this place called Helm's Deep. Helm's Deep was built in this mountainside, this rocky mountain. And so these the bad guys, they're called the Uruk-hai. They're a special kind of orc, kind of like a monster kind of thing, and they are warriors. Okay, and so what they do is, and the leader of the Helm's Deep, he says to the people that are with him, this stronghold has never been breached. It's never been breached, is what he said. And so he's feeling very confident. But the Uruk-hai come with this huge bomb. This thing is like, it's taking two of the Uruk-hai to carry it, and they put it up against a wall, okay? It's like the weak part of the wall. They put it right up against, and then all of a sudden you see this other Uruk-hai, and he's carrying this torch. You know what I'm talking about, right? It looks like he's carrying the Olympic torch. He's running. And then so Aragorn, the leader of the resistance there, he says to Legolas, the elf prince, he says, kill him! Kill him! And Legolas is this master archer, and he puts two arrows right above his armor, the Uruk-hai's armor, right here where there's no armor. And the Uruk-hai falls forward, and the torch lights the bomb and blows a gaping hole in the wall. And Helm's Deep, the stronghold, was breached. He just blew this, they just demolished the wall. And this is what the Apostle Paul's talking about. That's the image I get thinking about that scene in that movie. When I read this verse, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. Okay, so Paul says we need to demolish two things in this verse. Two things we demolish: arguments and pretensions. A pretension basically means every high thing. Okay, we'll get into that in just a little bit here. Every high thing. But arguments refers to speculations, false doctrines, false beliefs that sound good, but they're really not true. Okay, to you. And what they are designed to do, these arguments will get us to question whether or not God really said something, or if God really forbids something, or if God really meant something that he said. Somebody give me an example in Scripture where the devil presented an argument to God's people and they did not demolish it. They did not demolish that. There you go. That's the one that I was thinking of. And right in the garden, right from the very beginning. Did God really say? And so Satan presented an argument to both of them, and they didn't demolish it. And we, of course, we know what happened, because they didn't demolish it. So strongholds are, they're very important for us to take seriously in our lives. If the devil identifies a weak area in my life, he keeps going back to that weak area. Okay, he'll keep presenting that did God really say? You know, did God really mean? And if he's been successful there once in a particular specific area in my life, then he keeps going there because he recognizes that as a weak area. We've all heard the old adage, you're only as strong as your weakest area, okay, or your weakest link. Now, when the devil keeps going back to that area in my life, the weaker that area becomes. If I don't tell, a foothold becomes a stronghold. Because the devil keeps going back there, and it keeps getting weaker and weaker for me, but it keeps getting stronger and stronger for him, until it's come to a point where I'm being controlled. Something has an influence over me that is controlling me. For several years, not too recently, but semi-recently, but for several years, I had an affair. Her name was Little Debbie. You guys are, I'm trying to pour out my heart here. You guys are making Swiss cake roll jokes over there. It was a give and take relationship. You know, I'd give her my money and she'd take my health. Okay? Little Debbie, just walk in the grocery section, you'll see her face on about 20 different boxes. See, an initial thought that the devil sends me, it may just be a toehold the first time it comes into my life, but the longer I entertain these thoughts, then the stronger that toehold begins. And really, that's how strongholds begin. Strongholds don't begin as strongholds. They begin as toeholds and even footholds. Right? The devil wants to play footsies with us. He wants to play toesies with us. And that's what happened. And so I began to walk down the grocery aisle, and I would say to myself, I need to have that. Or it could be any area, you know, because the devil says, you know, you really should take care of yourself. You deserve that.